Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kevin Plays Disc Golf. Today we have a playthrough and course review from Otter Brook Disc Golf Course in Keene, New Hampshire. My name is Kevin, and I play disc golf. Filming on course for this video was done on September 10th, 2024. The course originally opened in 2013. The entrance to the disc golf course is off of New Hampshire State Route 9. Depending on exactly where you're coming from, GPS may try to send you another way through the park, but many of the back roads have gates and are often not drivable. If you are coming from the east, the entrance will be about a half mile past Granite Gorge Ski Area and is the first road on the left after the ski area. If you're coming from the west, the opposite lane of traffic will be 2 lanes briefly, then about half mile after the second lane starts for them, or ends for you, the park entrance will be the first road on the right after that. The on-site portion of the video starts at the upper parking lot. The upper parking lot is always open, and unless you're planning on using the other park facilities, I would recommend parking here in the upper parking lot by Route 9 and start the round on hole 5, play holes 5 through 18, then play 1 through 4 even if the gate is open. This is a common enough practice that there are informational kiosks about the course on both holes 1 and 5, and lost disc drop boxes after both 4 and 18. The main gate is only open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Wednesdays through Sundays between Memorial Day and Labor Day. Though the main gate is closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, and September through May, you are still allowed to use the park as long as you park in the upper parking lot and carry out everything that you carry in. The day I did the on-course filming was on a Tuesday, and there was a park official that I spoke with that confirmed that I was okay to be there. Note the truck in the section of the video going from the basket of hole 4 to the access road end for the tee of hole 5. I have played this course a few times, and though the summer was largely dry, filming was done a couple days after a heavy rainstorm. Though the day of the filming was the wettest it has been when I have played this course, my guess is that in the spring, the creeks and marshes will be wetter, but not wet enough to the point of being concerned about losing discs in them.
Little course update here. This is on March 23rd, 2025. The snow has just recently melted here. We got some rain over the weekend, and pretty much all the snow is gone. But as you can see here, we're at hole 5. At the creek, and though there is a little bit of water here, it's not that bad. So at least here, hole 5, the water is not going to play any worse than it did in the video last fall.
Though there are short tees on some holes, there's really only one well-marked set of tees and baskets for this course. If you're looking for a nearby course that is more beginner-friendly, I would strongly recommend Wheelock Park instead, link in the description. That said, if you're looking for a next step up and challenge from Wheelock Park, this is a good choice. Whether or not alcohol and tobacco are allowed is unclear. Post a comment if you know for sure. All trash in the park is carry in, carry out. There are no trash cans anywhere in the park.
One other thing to confirm here, if we look to our right, that building just across the bridge, it does say men and women on it, so I assume those are bathrooms. Whether or not they are open at this time, I do not know, but that's at least where they are.
Dogs are allowed in parts of the park, but unfortunately not on the disc golf course. They are allowed in the main picnic area across the brook from the disc golf course area. The disc golf course is completely separate from all of the other park activities. Whenever I've seen others walking in the park, it has always been in locations other than the disc golf course. You should still be aware that there may be people out there before you throw, but everyone that I've ever seen on the disc golf course has been there to play disc golf. I'll have my overall review of the course at the end of the video. Be sure to post your comments as to your thoughts of what looks fun and where you think the problem areas are. Now, let's go to the upper parking lot just off Route 9.
All right, here we are on Tuesday, September 10th at Otter Brook Lake Recreation Area for Otter Brook Disc Golf. As you can see, the entrance is immediately next to Route 9, and if you're here on a Monday or Tuesday, or even if you're later, we are in a dirt parking lot here just to the left, because this course is actually The main park, the entryway is closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. So after going through the ranger gate, the first intersection you'll come to is here. We're going to make a right turn and follow along the edge here. If you're driving, you're also going to want to make a right turn, but when you exit, you're going to be coming over that bridge, as these roads are all one way. So just be aware that it's going to be a little bit different. If you're coming from the lot, like we are today, I'm going to recommend starting at hole 5, and I'll show you the entrance to there, and then we'll also show you the entrance if you're here when the park is open to walk in to drive. Just after the right-hand turn, you'll see a speed bump, and just to the right of the speed bump, there is a little white posted sign, but that is the trail going up to hole 5. In general, I'm going to recommend playing this hole starting at hole 5 and then ending at hole 4 if you're parked up top, just because it's a lot less walking getting to hole 1. If you're driving, then playing hole 1 to 18 as you normally would is probably going to be the best option. Here we can go up steps, rock steps here, and there is quite a bit of signage here. So this is done often enough that they have a lot of info here, and they have a board here to give you all of the rules and information that are specific to this course. If you are either walking from the entry lot or coming here on a day where it is open, to start hole 1, you have this Otter Brook disc golf sign on the right here. If you're parking, looking for somewhere to park, just past this going straight, there are some parking spots, dirt parking spots up on the left. And this sign, which has a staircase going up, will lead you to the hole 1 tee. From the parking area, if you are going to be leaving, these roads are all one way. So if you're driving out, you're going to need to take a right here and then a left across the bridge, and that will take you through another section of the park and send you back out to the main entrance. Or if you are starting your round, this is how we would walk, or the direction that we would walk to get up to hole 1. Or if we started at hole 5, this is the direction that we would be walking to get to hole 1 as well. There's a couple more parking spots here. Straight ahead is the road that we would be driving in on if you were to come here on a day where the park is open. And one of these spots would be the best ones to park in if you are starting your round on a weekend, because it is closer than hole 4 to get the round started on. If you are starting on hole 1 or coming up from hole 18, you'd be walking up this road, which is the one you would be driving in on to the parking spots. We have the brook down here off to our right. This is a one-way road going the opposite direction I'm walking, so again, you can't really drive this way. But to get to hole 1, there is a set of steps here to the left of the road opposite the creek. There is a sign pointing the other direction saying hole 1 is up here. And there are some power lines that are a little bit close, but still a solid 8 feet above ground here. It is well marked. Otter Brook disc golf signs. And go up this path. And it is pretty steeply uphill. And then right at the top where these rocks are, we have a bench and the tee pad for hole 1. Hole 1 is a 325-foot par 3, dogleg left, very significantly uphill. It plays as, I would say, closer to 400 feet, and there's no good way to get to the basket through the trees. It's really hard to even play some sort of high shot. If there's one hole on the course that I think the par is not as fair as it should be on, it is this hole. This could be thought of as a par 4, so I think if you're get a 4 on this hole, you're going to be doing well. So once we get a little further up, we'll take a shot from the landing zone so you can see exactly where we're going. If you note that large rock to the right, that's probably where we'll be taking the next video from. All right, here we are looking back at the tee, and there is the large rock. And if we look up through there, that is where the basket is. We've still got another solid 200 feet to get there. I'm actually about 20 feet behind where I am standing. So I've got a real long second shot that's going to be tough to navigate the trees with. All right, so we ended up with a 5 here. So we can grab our disc out of the basket. One thing to note is that all of the baskets have these green arrows on them. So the green arrows are going to point to where the next hole is. In this case, it's pointing us up this trail. So we can go up here. Here's a sign. Most of the holes here have paths that there's really nowhere to get lost or deviate from the path on, even if it's a bit of a walk or not particularly well signed, not signed every 50 feet or so. It's still pretty easy to make your way around. And here we have our tee box for hole 2. A couple things I'll point out about this course is that all of the holes have these nice signs on them. They'll have brooms on the tee pad, and the tee pads are all this black rubberized material, which we're in the fall, so we're getting some stuff coming on the ground, but this stuff sweeps off pretty easily. But these are pretty sticky and provide good grip. So we have uniform tees throughout the entire course. There are a couple holes where these brooms have had issues for whatever reason, but some of them are in better condition than others, but all of them at least have them in some form or another. So it's very nice that the park and the disc golf club has done their best to keep these things up and running, and it just makes the whole experience a lot nicer. All of the tees also have benches and tables, so that's all nice things to have while you're waiting, so you're not standing wondering where I put my stuff, how do I deal with it. So a couple of the things that are really nice about this course. Hole 2 is a 225-foot par 3, very steeply downhill, and the basket is through this set of trees in the middle. Where this is, I'll point out better where it is, but you can sort of sneak a view of the basket through here. You do have options of going either right or left around it. So again, the key is getting around the trees, and you do not want to be long, as the hole drops off significantly behind the basket as well. You have about 20 feet past the basket before it drops off a lot, but it does go downhill a long ways. All right, so somehow I managed to make a 45-foot putt to get this in for 2 here. So we can grab our disc out of the basket, follow the little green arrows, and we are being sent up this hill to the hole 3 tee box. And if we go right up the hill, right at the top of this hill, we can see the hole 3 tee. Right there. Hole 3 is a 395-foot par 3, very steeply downhill. So again, this is kind of the opposite of hole 7, going back up the other way. Though it is a long par 3, because it is so far downhill, it does play quite a bit shorter than this. If you get a 3, you're in good shape, but I have made a 3 on this hole before, so it is definitely possible. All right, here we are looking back at the hole 3 tee from sort of the top of this little crest landing zone. There's the bridge. This is the first little crest. Past this, you can turn around and see the basket not too far there. I ended up, not sure we can see it, ended up way down there. So even though I have a noodle arm, I'm under 100 feet there. So that means I launched that thing approaching 300 feet, and hit a tree to get out there. So again, you can if you want to let one rip, this is the hole to do it on. After the huge drive and the good op shot, we have a drop in for 3. All right, so we can then get our disc out of the basket. Green arrow points us this way across this little bridge. And as we go across the bridge, just on the other side of this, we have the tee box for hole 4. Hole 4 is a 320-foot par 3. It does go downhill slightly to the right. So kind of the target that I aim for is if we see that big rock, as a right-hand forehand thrower, I'm going to have it move from left to right, hopefully going down that hill and getting as close as we can. The little creek that's shown on the map does not come into play. That's where that little bridge is. It's dry and you should have no problem getting over it. So for your shot, again, because the hill does crest, you don't need to have it go too high over that rock, but if it makes it over that rock, should have a nice fade going down towards the hole. We're standing on the rock looking back at the tee, and if we spin around, we can see that it does drop off. There's quite a bit of, although there are trees off to the right, there's enough space in between the trees where if you end up in there, it's not the end of the world and you still have a good shot at 3. I'm not sure exactly where I am, but I'm somewhere where that group of rocks is, I believe. And then the basket is tucked a little bit on the left side between a couple of those trees. I will point it out from this shot here. So we ended up with a 3 here, so we can grab our disc out of the basket. Now here we have 2 options. If you are going to hole 5, we can take a left and go up that path there, which we will do shortly. If you are exiting the course, if you started on hole 5, you can either go up the path that we have, or if you come out over here, there's another lost and found basket. There's one here and one at hole 18. And if you go just past this, this sets you on the road that we entered on. So we have the option of going out to this road and taking a left as one option. The other option to leave or to get to the tee for hole 5, we can follow the arrow from the basket, continue down this pathway. And I like being in the woods, so generally I would prefer exiting the course this way rather than walking on the road. But either are options. Follow this over here. We do want to be a little bit careful because we are on the edge of the fairway of 5, and a highly errant tee shot could end up on this path. And continue down a little further. Again, there's really only one path here to follow. And there we are for hole 5. Hole 5 is a 295-foot par 3. It is fairly significantly uphill. From here, I'll point it out, but there are 2 trees that you can see the top of the basket through. All of the baskets here do have the big yellow bands on them, so visibility on this is pretty good, but basically you follow the path here and then it takes a right at the end to get to the basket. There is some marsh on the hole, so there's a little dip about 125 feet out, and it is a little marshy there now, but there's no active water. My guess is in the spring that there's probably more marsh there, but probably not enough to lose a disc in deep in the water. To get across the marshy area, there is this small bridge here on the left side of the fairway. And if we look over here, we can see the marsh. There's a little bit of standing water here. The ground is soft and squishy. There are some puddles. We had some rain a couple days ago, but again, my guess is in the spring this is probably going to be pretty wet, and this is kind of the prime landing zone. I'm in the middle, just past that stump, behind a couple of rocks. And if we look on top of the hill from here, standing on the bridge, we can see the basket from here, and that's what we're going for. It does drop off both behind, forward, and to the right pretty severely, so this is kind of a death putt no matter where you're putting from. Here we are at the hole 5 basket with our back to the tee. We can go up and grab our disc. I ended up with a 4 here. One thing I will point out that is nice here is that all of the baskets here have this green arrow going to pointing to where the next tee is. So if we sort of follow the green arrow, look up, and we go in that direction, we can follow the trail, and the tee pad is, not sure we can see it from here, but if we just go over the top of the hill, the tee pad is down at the bottom there for 6. Hole 6 is a 215-foot par 3, dogleg left. The lighting is a little bit hard to see, but I can actually see the basket through the trees to the left from this location. You see where that tree is lit up by the sun, and the tree that's closer, that's next to it, if you look through that gap, that's where you can see the basket. Again, it does play significantly uphill to the end, and there is kind of a clear path to go from right to left here to get up to the basket. Here we are looking back at the tee pad, and this is another hole where there is significant marsh here. There's actually water here. This does play as casual water. It's not out of bounds per se. As you can see, I ended up right next to the bridge, even after having bounced off a couple trees to get there, and so it's going to be a little bit challenge of a second shot to the basket up on top of the hill, but still not too bad. It's borderline. I may even be inside circle 2 from there. Here at the bridge on hole 6 on March 23rd, you can see we do have a little bit of snow here. However, again here, the rest of the marsh is just wet and muck. It's not a great place to go in, but again, you're not going to lose a disc in there. Standing here on the left of the basket at hole 6, this gives a good idea of sort of how narrow that top section is, where if you're short, it rolls away steeply back towards you. If you're long, it's going to roll steeply down into the ravine. And even if you're too far left or right, it has a chance to roll away pretty much in any direction. So this is one that laying up close to the hole may be a better option than going for it from 60 feet away and having a huge roll away and being further away than you started. So I ended up with a 4 here as well. My second shot was not very good because of poor footing in the swamp. But again, here we have the little green arrow. And from here, we have to go through this little gully, but we can see the tee for hole 7 from up here just on the top of that next hill. Hole 7 is the longest hole on the course. It is a 450-foot par 4. It actually plays much longer than that because the second shot is very steeply uphill. The hole is on top of the ridge that we can see directly ahead of us and off to the right. We get a better view of that once we get to the second shot at the bottom of the hill. But this is, again, very long, and the second shot is pretty much straight uphill. So this is a good one to let it fly on, see how far up the hill you can get. But most likely we're going to end up in the landing zone at the bottom of the hill just to try and minimize how far uphill we have to go for the second shot. Here we are in the landing zone looking back at the tee pad. With my noodle arm, this is about as good as I could possibly hope for here. Had a good shot, missed all the trees. And if we turn around, now we can get an idea of how steeply uphill this is. So this is looking in the direction of the basket, and then we have to go up and up and up and up and up and up and up. And way at the top of the hill, there's the basket. I do have a clear shot at it, but I'm still probably about 200 feet away. and a solid 40 plus vertical feet below where the basket is here. Again, the camera doesn't do this justice to show how steeply uphill this really is. After a couple shots up the hill and making a 20-foot putt, I did end up with 4 here. So here we can go to our basket of hole 7, note the direction of the arrow, grab our disc. We can turn to the left, and if we take a walk over in this direction, we will see a couple of benches and a picnic table, and here we have the tee for hole 8. Hole 8 is a 325-foot par 3, pretty significantly uphill, so again, it does play quite a bit longer than that. I'll point out the basket here in editing. You can actually see it from here, but it kind of follows the line of trees off to the left a little bit. You have some options on how to get there depending on how you throw, but again, this plays pretty long, so here's one that if I get a 3, I'll be quite happy with it. So we're about 200 feet off the tee pad, and we are made it across the little gully and ended up about halfway up the hill, so we are in pretty good shape to get to the basket. Again, here is one, we're a good solid 100 feet anyways to the basket from here. We take our 3 and be happy with that. After my 3rd shot bounced off the top of the basket, I ended up with a 4 here. So from here we can grab our disc, and there is a sign here. One other thing you'll notice is it is, again, steeply downhill to the back and left of the basket, so we do have a potential death putt on 8 as well. So once we get our disc from 8, we can follow this path, sort of off to the right behind, and it is pretty steeply downhill here, so you do want to be a little bit careful, but again, it's a fairly obvious trail to follow, even though it's there's no markings or things, but you can actually see the tee pad for 10 from further back up there. And I'm just going to wait till we get to this rock wall. From the rock wall, follow the path down, and you can see the tee pad for 10 from up here. For hole 9, we have a 195-foot par 3, and it is downhill a bit. There are trees to avoid, but you have a few different options, at least to make reasonable attempts as to how to avoid them. So again, with me playing right hand forehand flick, generally I'm going to go to the left and have it go over stable at the end and hopefully get to the basket. It does drop off significantly about 30 feet behind the hole, and because it is downhill, it is possible to overdrive this. All right, so after our drop-in 3 at hole 9, we can grab our disc out of the basket. Note where the green arrow points us. It points us over in this direction. There's this little sign for hole 10 down there, though I don't know how long that is going to last or if it's going to survive the winter. But we can walk this way. Again, it's kind of back up in the general direction of where we came from for hole 9. But we can follow this path. And this is a bit of a walk. Go down here. And go a little bit further. And here we are at the tee pad for hole 10. Hole 10 is a 320-foot par 3, dogleg to the right. It is flat, but after it starts to dogleg to the right, it does go downhill significantly. So kind of the ideal play here is if the 165 sign is there, that's 165 feet from there to the hole. That's where it starts to go to the right. So ideally you want to be right of that tree. This isn't a mando, so no out of bounds here. There is a creek down by the basket. The creek is not very big, so I would say even in the springtime that you don't really need to worry about losing a disc in there, and you can play it as casual water. We are standing just in front of the 165-foot tree that I just hit on my drive, looking back at the tee. So just to give you, again, an idea of where we're going, my disc bounced off the tree and ended up there. But if we had continued on, here's where it starts to dogleg right, and the basket is on the other side of the creek in the rocks and just in that area there. Little update on hole 10. First off, the 165-foot sign is still there here. It did make it through the winter. Second, I just had the perfect shot that I was hoping for, that I mentioned in my pre-recording. And if we go down here, my tee shot is right down here. Now, the bad news is it's in the river. Good news is it made it here in one shot, but this is not particularly deep, so I have a circle 2 look at birdie from here, which makes me very happy. Well, missed it, but again, with it being wet, drop in for 3 is makes me very happy here. Note the green arrow pointing up the hill this way. And it is a little bit of a walk to get to hole 11, but the trails are fairly obvious here for the most part. Even where there's a lot of distance between the holes, there's not a whole lot of options as far as possible ways to get lost. So there's really only one direction to go for most of these. And now we can look up and see our tee for hole 11. Hole 11 is a 235-foot par 3, slightly uphill, straightaway shot, or I should say there is an option to go straightaway. You have several different options as far as exactly how to approach it, whether you want to go right, left, straight up the middle. It's another one of kind of tossed up there and hope you miss the trees. So after seeing how many trees I could hit on this hole and ending up with a 4, and I think it was 4 trees hit and 4 shots, I had about a 15-foot putt for 4. To go from 11 to 12, we can grab our disc, again follow the little green arrow. There's an arrow on the tree there, and continue up this path. This is not too far to get to hole 12. I can actually see the hole 12 sign and the hole 12 tee from here. And here we are. Hole 12 is a 285-foot par 3, mostly flat. However, the pin is on top of a mound that is about 6 to 8 feet tall, and no matter what direction you're approaching the basket from, it's going to be a death putt. It's off to the left through the trees, but the main play is to go straight. And this is another one that, even though it's under 300 feet, if you get a 3, it's a good one to be happy with a 3 on. All right, here we are looking back at the tee pad. You can see my disc there. That's after 2. I ended up in the woods to the right off the tee, off the left of the picture. And if we turn around here, we can see this big mound here and the basket on top. Again, this is kind of a death putt no matter what direction you're coming at it from. And where I am here is, if everything goes well, this is where ideally you'd like to end up after your tee shot. My third shot rolled away into the crater behind the basket, so I had to sort of lay up for the 4th shot. Again, death putts all around. So I ended up here with a 5. Here you can see the arrow pointing towards the side. There are stairs leading off the side of the mound. So going to the next hole, we will grab our disc, down the stairs, and go past the crater. Again, the crater is probably 4 feet below the level of the ground that I'm walking at now. And not too far up here, we have our next tee. Hole 13 is a 285-foot par 3, dogleg left and significantly uphill at the end. There is another little marshy area which in the spring may have water in it. Here I'm guessing today it's going to be a little bit damp as it rained here pretty heavily a couple days ago. The idea is to go straight, and then if you have a way to get it from right to left, as far as you can get it up there is going to be good. I will point out here where the basket is, because you can sort of see it if you're actually standing here, although you can't see it from the camera shot because there are a couple branches in the way. But it is between the two trees off to the left, and there's a larger tree further up through there that I can point out exactly where the basket is. Again, depending on how thick the leaves and branches are, you may or may not be able to see it from the tee. All right, here we are in the landing zone looking back at the tee. I ended up hooking through the trees and ending up right there. So this is the marshy area. As you can see, it now even it's pretty dry in here. Here we are at hole 13 in the fairway. This is the single largest body of water I've seen here so far. We can see that there is quite a bit all the way around here. This is clear at least, so you're not going to lose a disc in there. And there's enough rocks where it's going to be obnoxious to get a disc, and you don't want to land in here, but you're not going to lose a disc. If we then look up, right where the sunshine is coming through between those two trees, there's a straight shot to the basket. Again, it is pretty far uphill from here. Ideally, you actually kind of do want to end up a little bit further than I am to have a shorter approach shot, but we're still an okay shot to have a chance at a 3 from here. All right, so we took a 4 on the hole 13, so we can grab our disc out of the basket. Again, the nice little green triangle pointing in the direction that we want to go. There's a couple signs here as well. And walk down this path. Reminder to do not feed the Sasquatch. And come through here. And here we have the tee pad right next to an old wire spool and bench that can be used as a table. Hole 14 is a 200-foot par 3, straight ahead and through the trees, but there's a clear shot. This is as close as we're going to get to a standard hole as we see here, where it's pretty much obvious what to do here. After what was by far our best drive of the day, I end up with about a 15-foot putt for birdie here. Let's see what we can do. Hooray, there we go. First birdie of the day. And I think only my second birdie on this course. So from here, to get to hole 14, we can get our disc out of the basket. You can see the green arrow. And there is an arrow behind the basket as well. And there's a wide path that looks like it's big enough to get some sort of ATV or to get an ATV or snowmobile through. And we can come up along this path here. And to get to hole 15, the tee box with, again, a nice little picnic table. It's really nice that they have the benches and the picnic tables all set up through most of the holes here. And here we are at the tee. Hole 15 is a 405-foot par 4, dogleg left, and though it's not that long, it does require precision, as once you get off into the woods here, the trees are pretty dense, so You could spend a couple shots trying to get back out depending on exactly where you end up. This is the last par 4 on the course, and it does say there is some marsh there, but every time I've played this, it may have ended up as damp ground. Again, in the summer or spring, there may be more wetness there, but even then, it's unlikely to lose a disc in there. Even if there is water there, it's not going to be very deep. So here on hole 15, once we get up to the landing zone, I'll give a better shot of this, but right here, the basket is through the trees to the left. There is no direct path there, and it does go uphill for about the last 100 feet to the basket. And it is a bit on the top of a hill, so depending on what angle you come from, it can be a death putt. In the landing zone for 15, looking back at the tee, if we turn this way, you can see I ended up in the woods there. Not too far in the woods, so it's not in terrible shape. I may actually have a clean shot at the basket, but if from here we turn and we can see through the trees where it goes up the hill. The basket is on top of the trees. I'll point this out exactly where it is to show it, but we do have a clear shot at the trees from where we're standing. You can see that this road does go a little bit to the left after we get to the end of the straight spot that we can see from the tee. But beyond here, the further up we go, the trees get a little bit less dense, but there's not really any good second shot here. It's just try and do your best to avoid the trees and get as close to the basket as you can on your second shot. A couple of issues have been cleaned up. First off, there is this swamp area here. However, it appears that there are some trees that either over the winter or through maintenance have come down in the middle here. So there's actually a real path to get up to the basket now on hole 15. Here's what I have left for my par 4 here. My third shot, I had a look from about 50 feet away, but I decided to lay up because if we look at what's around here, it does drop off pretty steeply in every direction. If we go back past the basket, you can see it goes down quite a ways, and I have had one roll away that has ended up way down in the creek there before from about a 20-foot putt. So we will go ahead and take our putt for our par 4. So we've got our 4 there, and we can follow the arrows, and there's a sign on the tree to go to hole 16, and go down this path. Again, once you're on this path, just kind of follow it and go to the end, and right up there is the tee pad for 16. Hole 16 is a 225-foot par 3, completely blind, although it looks like you're going down through a gully and then back up a hill. The basket is actually about the same height as the tee pad. If you follow where you need to go, it's sort of through this right gap on the trees, and it fades off to the right further. Once you get to the crest of the hill, there's a steep drop-off on the other side, and the basket is just beyond that drop-off. I'll go get a video from the top of this hill so you can see exactly where you're going, but this is one that if you toss a blind shot, you have absolutely no idea where to throw it, but you kind of want to go, again, through that right gap and then fade right over the top of the hill. We're at the top of the hill looking back at the tee, and if we pan around here, we can see there we have the basket at the bottom of the hill. My second shot is somewhere down there. I ended up bouncing off a couple trees on my tee shot and somehow missing everything and getting over and down the hill on my second. So this is another one where if you have a really good drive and miss the trees, you have an opportunity at birdie, but if you don't make it over this hill where I'm standing and sort of down there, then sort of take your 3 and be happy with it. We did end up making about our 20-foot putt for par 3. And if you notice, this basket is in a depression, so no matter where you're putting, it's going to be a downhill putt. So we can grab our disc going to hole 17. Again, noting the green arrow pointing that way. There's also a sign on the tree here pointing us down this path. One other thing to note is next to this sign here, there is a bell here that you can ring to let the people behind you know that you are clear of the hole. And continue down to hole 17, which is directly in front of us right there. Hole 17 is a 255-foot par 3. It is a sharp dogleg left. From here, if you look directly over the second stump on the ground to the left, you can see the basket directly above this. I'll point that out a little bit better in editing. But to get there, you really need to go down this path to the right, avoid those 2 trees, and have the disc curl back to the left from there. I ended up behind that tree that my bag is next to. Here's the big rock that you can see from the tee, and if we turn around here, if you make it out as far as I am, you have a clear straight shot to the 17 basket. Here we are at the 17 basket. Something to note is it does drop steeply off behind the basket. My second shot ended up going on edge, rolling, going just past the basket, but rolling down the hill and ending up right up against those logs. So just be aware that long is bad on this hole. So you can get our disc out of the basket, look at the arrow here, take a turn to our right, and follow this brief path here. And the hole 18 tee is right here. Hole 18 is a 275-foot par 3, pretty steeply downhill, so you can see the basket from the tee straight away. There's marsh long, but again, it's pretty dry right now, so even if it goes in there, it's still going to be playable. And yeah, here kind of the neat feature is you have this tree that's hung over and bent over in the middle of the fairway. That is definitely in play, depending on how you throw, what you end up doing. But this is kind of a neat picturesque hole for hole 18. Right, so we had a 15-foot putt for a 4 here. So we can grab our basket out of their 18th hole, follow the arrow, and pretty much just go right out to the road here to exit the course. And if we have a nice view to our right of the lake. And yeah, this is a nice place to come if you want to hang out with family, have a cookout when the park is open. Can maybe ditch them for a couple hours to go play a round of disc golf and have your fun and come back and maybe have a barbecue set up. So there are 2 lost and found boxes, disc boxes here. One is at the end of hole 18, the other one is at the end of hole 4. So if you find any discs that have names on them, then this is the place to go. They are brought to a place called Corner News in Keene, and they do a good job about helping people find lost discs. So from here we come out to the road and take a right turn, and this is kind of the parking area where if you were drove in, this is where you would want to park. So you get spat out right here, and from here we can follow this road back up to hole 1. All right, here we are on March 23rd, 2025. We're at hole 18, which is the same 275-foot par 3, same tee location, same basket location. However, as you can see, the lake is significantly higher. There's only about 20 feet from the basket to the edge of the lake where that starts. distance control is much more important here today than it is in the fall, because you don't want to get your disc wet and it could go a long way out there. So it does definitely affect how this hole plays, and we'll see what we can do from here. We're way off on the left there, but that's at least dry. Here we are at the basket of 18, and as you can see, the lake is significantly higher now than it was earlier. Basically, the lake is almost up to the basket. There's about 20 feet behind the basket, and then we have the lake. So this is also going to change how we get from the basket of 18 to the tee of hole 1. All right, so to get from hole 18 to hole 1 with the lake in the way, with our back to the tee facing the lake, we want to turn right and sort of follow the lake around here. There is a path that's a little bit higher to sort of stay out of the water. You kind of want to follow this line off around to the left of the basket as you're facing the tee, and it's kind of a pick your line through here. There's not a specified distinct path, but the walking here is fairly easy. Even though the lake is high, the ground here is still dry, so you're not slipping and sliding all over the place. And this is a much longer walk through the woods here, since the woods are in the way and we can't take the road because it's underwater. I suppose this is also an alternate way to get from hole 18 to hole 1 when it is dry, but the walking is more difficult, so I wouldn't really recommend it. Looks like we can get out to the road here now. So from here we'll go out to the road and walk up to hole 1 as we would if it was dry. Just also to note here that the swamp does kind of carry over to this far out, so it's really right about here. We can see the bridge is the first place that we can actually get to the road. If you need more motivation to not come in here the back way, if we take a look here, there we have the road that is underwater. Surprisingly, the gate's only about 2 feet underwater. I would have expected it to be quite a bit more than that, but that is the lower parking area underwater. Though there is a little bit more parking up here that is dry, but there's your motivation to not go through the water or take the back roads here.
Though there were no active upgrades that I saw, the Keene Disc Golf Club does an excellent job with maintenance. This course is mature enough where they have both the layout and amenities that are allowed by the park done to the best of their abilities, and for the most part, they have done a very good job. The thumbnail for this course is the approach to the basket of hole 6. This shot gives a good idea of what most of the course is like, albeit with more water than just about anywhere else. There are a lot of places here where you have to make decisions on whether to make a run at the basket or lay up, and this is a good example of that. My favorite hole is hole 10. It does a very good job of requiring a unique shot shape to get close to the basket, and even though I have never thrown that shot, I have come close a couple of times. The fact that I generally throw right-hand forehand and this is the perfect shot shape for that hole probably doesn't hurt either. The hole also does a great job of using the natural topography and requiring precision without being overly punishing. Honorable mentions go to hole 3 for offering the opportunity to launch the tee shot off a huge hill while still requiring some precision, and hole 18 for being a hole where a perfectly placed tee shot can get you into birdie range, where a downhill 275-foot tee shot feels like it's longer than it actually plays. My least favorite hole is hole 15. The first shot is fine, but the second shot has so many trees that you need to miss that there isn't really any way to pick a good line no matter where your tee shot ends up. If the second shot doesn't hit anything, it feels more like luck than skill. To improve this hole, removing some of the trees to create a few well-defined paths to not hit trees would make the second shot here feel a lot better. If that made the hole feel too easy, there's also room to push the tee back along the path to make the tee shot longer. I don't think that's needed, but it is an option. Dishonorable mention goes to hole 1. When I look at a hole like this and ask myself if the par is reasonable, I'm not looking at this from the perspective of my noodle arm. I look at a hole like this and ask myself, could a tour pro throw a tee shot from here and make it into circle 2 for a birdie putt at least half the time? In the case here, the answer is no. The trees physically limit how high and how wide of a hyzer a right-hand backhand throwing tour pro could throw, and a roller up the hill that steep is also not sufficiently reliable. I've seen some online discussion that there was talk of either making this a par 4 as is or pushing the basket back at one point, but I think the second shot is fine, and the solution would be to push the tee back 100 feet or more to make the tee shot more challenging. The tee shot currently feels like a chip shot that doesn't require or reward either precision or distance off the tee into a much more difficult second shot, which is not ideal for a par 3. The first and last holes are critical for introducing the course and leaving the last impression at the end of the round. Here, there are 2 separate options, and this is another reason why I recommend starting at hole 5 and ending at hole 4, rather than starting at 1 and ending at 18. Any hole where you feel like you're throwing for a bogey off the tee is not good to start a round. Though 18 is a great hole to end the round on, the amount of disappointment that hole 1 sets you up for to start the round takes a few holes to wear off. Starting at hole 5 eliminates this. Hole 5 does have the marsh that may be an issue in the spring, and being 295 feet and uphill makes for a long starting hole, but it's at least one where you feel like you still have a shot at scrambling for par even if your tee shot isn't perfect. It's also more representative of most of the rest of the par 3 holes on this course. A perfect tee shot can get you birdie. A reasonable tee shot with a good second shot will get you a par. A mediocre tee shot with a mediocre second shot and an excellent putt will also get you a par. Though hole 4 isn't as good of a finishing hole as 18, it still has some nice end-of-round characteristics. With it being 320 feet and downhill, it plays shorter than hole 5 does. Also, much like a lot on this course, as long as you get a good ways down the fairway on the tee shot before hitting a tree or going into the woods, it's still possible to scramble for par. Course navigation is easy here, and you can tell that a lot of intentional effort has been put in to make this course easy to find your way around. All of the baskets have arrows pointing in the direction of the next tee. The trails between holes are well defined even when there is a bit of a journey, and there are signs to indicate that you're going the right way. On course, the only holes where there's really a question of whether or not you're going the right way are 4, 13, and 16. Navigating this course is like completing a color by numbers activity. As long as you have some basic idea of what to do and you can stay between the lines, it's going to end up just fine. And even if you wander off course a little bit, the negative consequences for doing so are minimal. This course is very safe for discs, at least in the summer and fall. There is some question about disc safety in the spring, depending on how deep the marshy areas and creeks get in places, particularly on holes 5, 6, 10, and 15. But even these I expect to be super easy, barely an inconvenience. To find a disc more than problematic to find it. Even in the fall, most of the trees are pine trees, so there aren't piles of leaves on the ground for a disc to get lost in. Just don't throw a dark colored disc and you should be fine. There isn't any shot I've taken anywhere on this course that has been affected by the thought of losing a disc. The tee pads are all excellent. They are grippy rubberized mats, and all holes have them. They also have the brooms to clear the pine needles, and the tee pads are grippy even when they are wet. I wish that the tee pads at every course were this good. The tee signs are unique and charming. The way they are designed blends naturally into the surroundings, and they feel like they're a part of the trees rather than an awkward item in the middle of the forest. The only thing that's missing is the elevation change from tee to pin, as there are several holes with a lot of elevation change. The baskets are all Innova disc catcher baskets. They are all consistent and of good quality. The yellow banding is easier to see in person than in the video, and though the yellow paint is fading a bit, they are still fine as is. My overall course rating is that I would be willing to drive 2.25 hours out of my way to play this course for the first time, and 1.5 hours to play this course again. The phrase that keeps popping into my head for this course is utterly charming. It's a beautiful walk through the woods, and though there aren't many holes that will test the distance of longer throwers, It rewards precision without being overly punishing for bad tree kicks. The picnic table near the tee of holes 3 and 8 is somewhere like I feel I would bring my lunch and have a picnic on a nice summer day, even without my discs. It's more than just a good disc golf course, it's a nice place to be. I will definitely play this course again, and though I do want to see how wet it gets in the spring, if I want to play a course where not every tee shot is a max power throw that's just a pleasant walk in the woods, this is where I will go. The only other nearby course is the 9-hole beginner course at the Pines at Wheelock Park, which though it is an excellent beginner course or course to practice your short game, link in the description, Otter Brook is a more traditional full-size disc golf course even though it doesn't have any holes that require 300-plus foot shots to get a par. Like, share, and subscribe. Check out my other video linked here or the playlist of my disc golf courses of New Hampshire linked in the description. And don't cause otter chaos like when a bunch of aquatic mammals escaped from the zoo.